some words with us. Chaka, I yield the floor.
Greetings, everybody. I put together something as been having a lot of discussions in my community about many things over many years, and it's kind of coalesced into this moment. And I wrote something to address some of the frustrations and historic experiences that need to be addressed by the quote-unquote Austin music community. So I'm going to read that and let it be on record and let all that hear this know that it's time for change. Austin has a race problem. Now that some are beginning to realize this fact due to undeniable recent tragedies inflicted yet again by an oppressive and lethal apparatus of the state, it's time for Austin, Texas to look itself in the mirror. I have literally spent years at meeting after meeting listening to rhetoric and dealing with marginalization for speaking out against the glaring inequities and double standards that I faced as a Black musician moving here 10 years ago. Despite all the nonsense, I moved forward into unbearably white spaces that showed little to no acknowledgement of the value that Black musicians played and continue to play in the music scene. Every single established Austin music organization that is not led by Black people has glaring holes in its ability to address and or acknowledge the historic underpinnings of racial discrimination in this city. There is no live music capital without Black musicians, period. There is no Stevie Ray Vaughan without Jose Hargrove, T.D. Bell, Albert King, B.B. King, or Albert Collins. The list goes on. But who has the statue? There is no Antones without venues like the Victory Grill and Charlie's Playhouse, but whose venues remain and survive. To say that this is merely a matter of how things just happen to play out is to ignore the very monster that continues to live and breathe today. The Austin Music nonprofit structure's inability to speak on this monster marks their unequivocal failure to the Black community. Not one of them can say, I have not had some version of this conversation with them in the past. If Black musicians are the very foundation of this music scene, why are we the most ignored and the least funded, the least represented, the most misunderstood? Leaders are worried if there will be a music scene left after COVID, but what about the fact that there may not be a Black community left due to gentrification? Does anyone in the established and privileged Austin music industry care about that? Show me the actions that illustrate a clear commitment to Black lives. Matter is the minimum. Black lives eternal. Black lives forever. Black lives excel. But we remain out of sight, out of mind to the leadership of the Austin music industry. I can't tell you how many times I have sat and heard about how unaffordable it is for musicians, but these voices remain completely silent around issues of Black displacement. If the privileged can't afford to live, if the privileged can't afford to live, then what does that mean for the historically disenfranchised here? This city, much like the rest of the country, conveniently only sees the problem when white people are affected. Over the last 10 years, I have been called a nuisance. Been told that I would be at more tables if I didn't talk about the things that I talk about publicly. Been condescended to and told to be silent so I can sit at the adult table and more. I know they didn't mean adult though. They meant white. The table is full of comfortable, old white men that cannot handle criticism. They want us Black people to be quieter, sit down, shut up, and take the crumbs that they offer. And when you cannot be controlled or paid off by the crumbs, the attempts at marginalization just take different forms. spoken or unspoken. I have experienced them all and still rose through it. It's been a lonely walk. It's been an exhausting walk. Even more exhausting is the absolute fact that I am not the only one who has faced varying degrees of the same disgusting, condescending reality. The master plan of 1928 extracted basic human rights to water and ensured that blacks would be out of sight and out of mind. Then, the brutal segregation terms were followed up with economic displacement through gentrification. Nothing substantial has been done to address this issue. Nothing substantial has been done to repair what was taken from native black Austin residents that made this culture what it is. Black music is the foundation of the live music capital. This is the unwritten story. The wealth and privilege shared by only a chosen few was built on the backs of black genius. As such, this city needs to reinvest in its black population. More specifically, I'm calling for an investment in black musicians and artists today. It's time for the city to reinvest in a community that laid the groundwork for much of the prosperity that white venue owners, promoters, theaters, and more have experienced over the last 50 years. It's a new day, and the old guard does not reflect the needs and moods necessary to lead us in the direction of change. We don't need to get token invites to share the stage on largely white bills curated by predominantly white music tastemakers. Everything we need to move forward is within our possession, except for the investment. That changes today. Moving forward, I am calling for 50% of the live music funds available to be allocated for a black live music fund. This fund will be created to address and repair the historic neglect perpetuated by music leadership in Austin. Stewardship of this fund will be in the hands of black people, and funds will be used to support, but not limited to, the following needs: the creation of a black owned and run music venue, small grant funding for black musicians and entrepreneurs to build sustainable platforms, development of technology for the promotion of black music in Austin, online radio, streaming platforms, websites, funding for artist education, online and traditional, 75% of funds directly back to native black Austinites and black organizations with 20 or more years of history living and serving in Austin. Finally, I am calling for black and white musicians to step up and join me in pushing the quote-unquote leadership in this city to put money where their mouths have been. Stand with me and call for reinvestment in black musicianship via a Black Live Music Fund so that we can take back some of what has literally been stolen for generations. The time is now. If we aren't talking about financial investment, we literally aren't talking at all. In the name of Black lives, in the beautiful spectrum of American culture that was born directly from it, we demand change. There is no turning back to what was. There's only the promise of today.